Over 100,000 babies are born each year addicted to cocaine. Let that sink in. Over 100,000 babies are born each year addicted to cocaine. Drugs are an increasing problem in America, and I'm here to discuss this growing epidemic. I'm majoring in criminal justice, and I hope to pursue a career with the DEA. And after researching this interesting topic, I am here to talk about the war on drugs. Today, I will be discussing the rise in drugs seen in America, their effect on the communities around them, and what the U.S. is doing to prevent the spread of these narcotics. I first want to talk about the rise in drugs seen in America. As you can tell here, the amount of cannabis seized by the Border Patrol has decreased over the years. This means that cartels are being more and more successful in smuggling their drugs into America. Cartels come up with the most unique ways of bringing their product to the U.S. For example, this is a picture of a tunnel connecting a safe house in TJ and a safe house in San Diego. Through this tunnel, the Sinaloa cartel is able to transport all their narcotics as well as their revenue from the U.S. to Mexico. Secondly, they'll cut compartments into cars, hollowing them out and filling them with their narcotic of choice. They'll patch it up and send it on its way. As this is going through customs, you can't tell the difference between a car that's filled with drugs or just a regular normal car. Cartels come up with these unique ways in bringing their drugs across America because this is their livelihood. This is why the rise of drugs has become so rampant, because no one wants to mess with these cartels. If you mess with their money, they'll mess with you and your entire family. So this is why they are becoming more and more successful, because people will go to whatever depth they need to in order to successfully smuggle these drugs into America. Now that I've talked about how these drugs reach America, I will now talk about the drugs' effects on the users and the community around them. Heroin is one of the number one killers and leaders to overdoses in America. This is because heroin is mixed with fentanyl. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is used to greater the mass of the heroin. So instead of a dealer being able to sell 10 bags, they're able to sell 20, even up to 30 bags of heroin. Fentanyl is very lethal because, as you can see here, 3 milligrams is enough to kill an average sized adult male, as opposed to 30 milligrams of just pure heroin. But with drugs comes violence. The two are inseparable. You can't have one without the other. There's been an increase in homicides and theft due to gang violence, fighting over territory of where they can and can't sell their drugs, or just innocent people dying in drive-bys. This is all due to the use of narcotics in America. As the amount of narcotics increases, so does the amount of violence. So despite all these odds, there's still some hope in trying to combat this growing epidemic. One of the people that are the first line of defense is the Border Patrol. Border Patrol agents will do custom routine checks along the border, looking for any irregularities. They'll question drivers, they'll look at their posture, they'll see how they react under pressure. Secondly, they have drug sniffing dogs. Now, these dogs can sniff out any type of narcotic: weed, cocaine, methamphetamine, anything. But one thing that smugglers do is they'll dip whatever package they have in ammonia, and it blocks the scent from the dog, so they can usually pass by. Secondly, every state has their own drug task force. Now, these task force are charged with finding dealers so they can infiltrate the supplier. they'll usually have a confidential informant buy drugs from a known dealer, and after the transaction is made, they'll bust that dealer, hoping he'll become a confidential informant as well, so they can get the big supplier. And lastly, there's the DEA. The DEA works on making bigger busts. They are more interested in finding the supplier rather than a small dealer. That's what they leave the state task force to do. The DEA works not only in America, but across the world as well, as in Mexico, Colombia, Puerto Rico, a lot of the areas where we see the inflow of these drugs. And what makes it hard to be a DEA agent is that in these rural countries, in these countries, the cartels will pay off local officials, and so they'll bribe them with money so that the DEA has no information about them. As if they even get a little tip that might help them, the officials will lead them down the wrong path. So finally, today I've talked about the rise in drugs in America. I've talked about their effect on the user and the violence they bring to the community. And I've also talked about the many resources America has in order to combat the battle in this war on drugs. So lastly, I'd like to leave you with this quote from Don Crawley. He's a Border Patrol agent, and he said, "I've arrested from 16 years old all the way to 79 years old. So if you can tell me what a smuggler looks like, please let me know. That would make my job so much easier." This showing that it's hard to tell who's selling drugs and who's not, because everybody is a suspect. Thank you.